Identity, faith, and Quranic humanism. What we're going to be doing here, inshallah ta'ala, is looking at a few things. I wanted to build a whole workshop for you today. But when we started building it, it's too much to show you in one session. The whole workshop would be what? To put up all the verses where Allah ta'ala has said insan, and nas, and qawm, and ibad, and mar. Mar is the man. So in any way, Allah ta'ala has just referred to humanity, or addressed humanity. As opposed to, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, which is clearly addressed to believers. And there's certain verses clearly addressed to mushrikeen, kuffar. But then that was across 100 verses. So I don't know, I can't show and comment upon 100 verses in a 2-hour or 1.5 hour slot. Alright? So then what we did was a selection. But at least it's a bigger workshop, right? But this would be a workshop, so I'm calling it Quranic humanism. I'm giving you another concept, right? Which is now you can talk another type of thematic tafsir, which is what I tell you, the workshop concept. What is Allah Ta'ala's concept of humanity? What does Islam say? What is humanity? What does it mean to be human? And the reason this is so important is because atheism, in addition to its scientism, also offers a rival concept of what it means to be human. That's called secular humanism. So now for a Muslim to understand what in secular humanism is actually okay, and what in secular humanism is a departure from the Qur'an, Sunnah, and Sharia, they must do what I call, this is just a term I came up with, Quranic humanism. And what does Quranic humanism mean? What does Allah Ta'ala say about insan, ins, an-nas, alright? Mara, etc. in Quran. Ibad, sometimes Allah Ta'ala uses the word ibad for believers. There, ibad means from ibadah and ubudiyya, my worshipful servants. Sometimes Allah Ta'ala uses the word ibad in Quran for creatures. And that He's addressing all of humanity. And then you can imagine, this is why you need linguistics. And you need to see the context of that verse, that does the word ibad here mean all human beings? So Allah Ta'ala is saying is, oh my creatures. Or does it mean my worshipful servants? So for example, Allah Ta'ala told Nabi Kareem sallallahu, it's in Quran, but Allah Ta'ala tells the Prophet sallallahu what? Nabi ibadi. That tell my who? No, because Allah Ta'ala is going to say that I'm a Ghafurur Rahim. So that meant tell my worshipful servants. Tell my abds. Right? But again, now there's multiple tafsir here. That yes, initially it meant for the sinning believers, but it also means that tell them also. Tell all my creatures. Even the atheists, tell them that I can forgive them for their atheism. Tell the mushrik I can forgive them for their shirk in this life. Not on the day of judgment, but in this life. So sometimes also you may find different mufassirs having a slight difference of opinion that there does ibad mean only believers, worshipful servants from abd and ubudiyah, ibad and ubudiyah, or does it mean creatures? Alright? But khair, so what we did is we started giving you a selection of the word, so I'm on slide number 4. I'm moving to slide number 5, Quranic humanism. Slide number 6, now we will start. Okay? Alright, so there are some verses here where Allah Ta'ala is going to talk about the nature of humanity. The nature of humanity. وَخُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ ضَعِيفًا. وَخُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ ضَعِيفًا. Now there's a whole context to this, so that's a separate thing. Right? Now I'm just plucking out the part of the verse where Allah Ta'ala is talking about humanity. So indeed, humanity has been created by Allah Ta'ala dha'if, as weak. Alright? Then obviously if you want to understand this statement, you have to look at what we call siyaq and sibaq in tafsir. What precedes it and what follows it. But right now I'm just trying to build up all the building blocks of humanity. So you got one word here, zaif. What does Allah Ta'ala say about humanity? That humanity is frail. Humanity is inherently frail. Is inherently why? Khuliqa. Because they've been created that way. They've been created by Allah Ta'ala in a way that they're inherently frail and weak. Now if you pause here, because this is actually different than some concepts of humanity. Some concepts of humanity, for example, Enlightenment philosophy, suggests that no, humanity is zabardast, right? That humanity is all awesome and all incredible and all powerful and can strive and reach things. Now, Islam isn't negating that. But there's an inherent weakness, and there's also, you're going to see later, and also an inherent greatness. And that gives the balance, and that maintains the humility of insan. So like I told you, now what's the message of this? Now that's translation. Humanity has been created weak. So what's the message for you? You say, what does that mean? People can get confused also if you don't have tafsir. So what Allah thinks we're weak, And the West is telling me we're supposed to be strong. Is Islam really light? Is it weak? Am I physically weak? What does it mean, am I weak? Right? So just translation does not give you hidayah. Alright? I could do this on every verse for you, that just translation does not give you hidayah. And if you're doing that translation at laser light speed and some super fast translation course, it's not going to give you hidayah. But yes, this much, you got this much. Well, khulika means created, and zaif means weak, and insan means humanity. You got vocabulary. You got vocabulary, right? I'll give you any branch of learning. If I just give somebody a list of words in economics, so now he knows the vocabulary of economics, does that grant him the meanings of economics? He'll say, no, it's not about knowledge, it's not about wordings and vocabulary. Translate, some people even do that. Lafzi tarjuma. This is another trend. I'm going to do word by word. Now that's different. That means you want to learn, that's for learning Quranic Arabic. That's a great method for that. I have no problem with that. Word by word translation of Quran is a method to learn Quranic Arabic language. It's not a method to learn meaning. Just like here I did it for you. Khulika has been created, insan, humanity, zaif, weak. That's how they teach when they teach lafzi tarjuma. What's the meaning? What's the message? What's the hidayah? How am I supposed to view myself and order my life now that I know that Allah Ta'ala told me He created me weak? What am I supposed to do? That's not there in the vocabulary. I think this should be crystal clear to you by now. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying learn Quranic Arabic. Learn Quranic Arabic through word for word translation. But no, that is language, vocabulary translation. Meaning and hidayah is a lot more. And somebody who only has done a word by word translation, because those are the better ones. Those are the better Quranic translation courses, that they go word by word. That may be a 3-year one. But somebody who's only done that, they can't teach the meanings of Quran. Yes, they can teach the vocabulary of Quran. They can also teach Quranic Arabic. Alright? I think this, I can't keep repeating this, right? Alright? This has to be very clear. Clear, but what I'm trying to do is build up the concept of humanity. So remember, I'm doing a specific thing with you also. It has limitations. Any approach we take will have limitations. That's why we have to keep doing multiple approaches, multiple looks at Quran. Right? Alright. So one word here is zaif. Alright. Then what's another thing? That وَيَقُولُ الْإِنسَانُ أَإِذَا مَا مِتُّ لَسَوْفَ أُخْرَجُ حَيًّا. So what happens is that a human being inherently, and their inherent humanity, is this questioning and doubting resurrection and life after death. Now what does it mean now? We're talking about insan pre-iman, pre-hidayah of Quran, pre-submission to Allah Ta'ala, pre-taslim, right? A human being naturally will, and you will find if you talk to any nice Western or atheist or Japanese atheist or South African atheist, atheism excludes Western phenomenon, there's the question asked you, are we really gonna, I find it difficult to believe. Am I really going to be born again or brought to life again after I die? It's the humanity that's talking. Don't get upset. They're not some skeptic or evil person. Allah is saying this is the nature of humanity. Unless you submit and believe in Quran and the Prophet ﷺ, it's natural to have this question. It's a natural thing. Alright? Okay. Again, that's just one. I'm only doing these verses for you for this exercise. There's a lot more that could be talked about in any one of these verses. Okay? Alright. So I'm not going to repeat these things anymore. Enough explanations to you about the methodology that we're using today. Alright. Now, at the same time, Allah Ta'ala says, but didn't you reflect on this? أَوَلَا يَذْكُرُ الْإِنسَانُ أَنَّا خَلَقْنَاهُ مِنْ قَبْلُ وَلَمْ يَكُ شَيْئًا. That why didn't insan also reflect on this? That ultimately, originally they were nothing, and we created them from nothing, and their past is of nothingness. So if they say what? That, well, when I end up in the grave, I will become nothing. If they say that, right, that my body will dissolve and disintegrate and all of that, so I'll become nothing, then how will I be brought forth from nothing? So here now, when you talk about aql and logic, right? So actually, Allah Ta'ala is also addressing this inherent human concept of logic, of logical thinking, right? That if you don't think it's possible, that it already happened to you. It's already happened. Alright? Okay. So this is one set of verses which I collected for you on this notion of this origin of humanity. Right? Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sometimes talks about the physical creation. Physical. أَوَلَمْ يَرَ الْإِنسَانُ أَنَّا خَلَقْنَاهُ مِن نُطْفَةٍ فَإِذَا هُوَ خَصِيمٌ مُبِينٌ. That look, this is also to humble. Again, to show you what's the guidance for us. It doesn't mean these are not verses just for non-believers. It's still a guidance for us that yes, like you say, Nurdu, mere asli auqat kya hai? What's my real origin? Right? I think I'm a believer, I think I'm this, I'm that, I'm accomplished in the world, or deen, or whatever. Maybe even a person is muttaqi, saleh. He's still an insan. This is nothing. This is a reducing factor. You're still insan. And what is insan? Insan was created out of a drop of najis fluid, of impurity. So this don't mean you're still humans, right? This is for everybody. So this is another reason why Allah Ta'ala does this. Now what is this? Now فَإِذَا هُوَ خَصِيمٌ مُبِينٌ. So the English is slightly off here. What happens here is Allah Ta'ala saying is that the self-conception of the human. Khasim from khasam means you can say argue, but it doesn't have to be negatively. It can also mean the ability to engage in discourse. Khasam. It doesn't have to be just negative. Arguing in English is kind of a negative. It's bad to argue, right? Here, what it is that it has this negative aspect there as well. The negative aspect is of Allah Ta'ala addressing the non-believer insan. You're arguing with Qur'an, arguing with the Prophet ﷺ. You're doing khasam against the Prophet ﷺ. But for us also it can mean, because we're not doing khasam, we don't dispute, no disputation with religion. But the message the believer will take for us, but still my dialectic, my discourse, the way I talk, I'm actually nothing. Why am I thinking of myself as some eloquent person? Right? So there's guidance, so much guidance from here. When you do lafzi tarjuma of this one, except فَإِذَا هُوَ خَصِيمٌ مُبِينٌ, you won't be able to get it. You won't be able to get it. Alright? But this is the notion of humanity. إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ خُلَقَ هُلُوًا. This is another word. One was ضَيْفَ. Now it's hulu'a. Now if you really want, you'd have to go deep into this. You'd have to really look at the word zayf. What could it mean? What are its multiple meanings? Halu'a, what does it mean? What's the tenor of these words? What's the difference between being zayf and halu'a? Right? Here the English is good. Restless disposition. A little bit anxious, a little bit restless, a little bit jumpy, a little bit quick, a little bit hasty. Alright? هل أتى على الإنسان حين من الدهر لم يكن شيئا مذكورا. That indeed was there not a time that transpired before humanity, a big time, a period of time that transpired before them when they weren't even anything known and remembered. There was nobody in 1800s who talked about me and you. There's nobody in 1800s who remembered me and you. We were unknown. It's again humbling our origins, even for the believer. Whereas there's another, what they call the human-centric view of the universe. So one was originally, is the earth the center. The second was the sun the center. Then they realized the sun was the center. Then they realized the solar system is itself not the center of the universe. It's just part of the universe. But some people view humans as the whole center of the universe. Like some people say, a self-centered individual. Sometimes they say, oh, you think the whole universe revolves around you. That's why these expressions came in English, right? So humanity thinks the whole world revolves around them. You could use this to talk about pollution. You could use this to talk about environment. That who are you, right? I mean, it would be turning the knob quite a bit, right? But environmentalists could take this and run with it. That who are you to take down these trees? They were here long before you and you didn't even exist and you were never remembered or mentioned on this earth. Right? Okay? Okay. Then, لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي كَبَدٍ. Okay, that was your past. You were non-existent and non-remembered. Now when you exist, in your existence, you have been existent in a state of kabad. Now what is kabad? So here he's tried to do 3 words. Pain, toil, trial, test, tribulation. So this is the nature of human life. This again contrast, because secular humanism, one aspect of it, especially the quote-unquote liberal view of life, is that life is about the pursuit of pleasure and happiness. And Allah is telling you in Qur'an, life is necessarily going to have, it doesn't mean it has no pleasure and happiness, but there will be pain, toil, trial, test, tribulation. It's going to happen. Now, it changes your worldview. One is, okay, if I accept this is going to happen, I need hidayah how to deal with this. And if somebody says, no, this does not necessarily have to be the case, therefore I will spend my life trying to avoid any and every test. It's a different way of life then. You live your life differently. Right? You live your life differently. Then, okay, I think one thing we weren't able to do, I made it into 7 separate subheadings. Khair, no problem. We weren't able to do that. Our team, mashallah, is working day and night to assist us and bring this to you. And sometimes I get ideas very late. So this idea I got around like 9:30 a.m. to add this also. So obviously if I tell them at 9:30 a.m., this is only so much they can do. Alright, so I put these headings in the verses, but they couldn't put headings. No problem. It's my fault, it's not their fault. Alright. Khair is nobody's fault. The idea comes when it comes. Right? Khair, but no problem. It can be my fault. The point is that you shouldn't think it's their fault. Alright? Yeah. Okay. So the second shift is here, another concept of humanity, is that shaitan is an enemy to all insan. Shaitan is an enemy to all insan. So that's a big thing. To be human, okay, now if I have to pluck out, to be human is to be blank. To let Allah Ta'ala tell us. As opposed to the philosophers and poets of the world to tell us what it means to be human. So here we get, what we get from him, inna shaitan lil insani aduwwum mubin. Slide number 13. Sorry, I haven't been telling you online people. Slide number 13. Inna shaitana lil insani aduwwum mubin. Indeed, shaitan is towards each and every single human being, and only due to their humanity, he is their diehard enemy. Allahu Akbar. So to be human is to have shaitan as your enemy. That's part of what it means to be human. Bani Adam, that's what a part of it means to be human. Oh, that's another one we could have put. See? Insan, ins, nas, ibad, qaum, Bani Adam. That's also in Qur'an. Right. You keep building the workshop. See? Allahu Akbar. I mean, that came to me right now and 12 noon, how am I going to get you those slides? We'd have to look at some verses there. Maybe Allah Ta'ala said something more about humanity, but instead of saying Ya, he said Ya Bani Adam. Alright? Okay. Khair. Same thing, Makana Shaitanul Insani. Khuzula. There's a different word. Khuzul. He is a deceiving, treacherous, betrayer. This is another aspect. He's not just your enemy. There's a treachery. A dajjal. A sly, cunning, wicked, treacherous, twisted, demented, perverted, torturous aspect to him. All of that is in this word. Allahu Akbar Kabira. Ajib. Next. Now, part of his treachery is what? كَمَثَلَ الشَّيْطَانِ إِذْ قَالَ لِلْإِنسَانِ كْفُرْ. So when shaitan tells humanity, don't believe. And the literal means ukfur is to deny the truth. So that, what does it mean? That humanity will constantly be being told by shaitan to deny, disbelieve. فَلَمَا كَفَرَ. So when that member of humanity says, okay, I deny, I disbelieve, I disobey, قال, what will shaitan do? So go back to slide number 14, because he's khazula, back to 15. What will he say? إِنِّي بَرِيءٌ مِّنْكَ. I'm absolved from what you're doing. I'm not culpable. I'm not guilty. I'm not responsible for what you do. Even though you did it because he was planting it on you. إِنِّي بَرِيءٌ مِّنْكَ. I'm absolved completely from what you do. إِنِّي أَخَافُ اللَّهَ رَبَّ الْعَالَمِينَ. Me, I fear Allah Ta'ala, who is the Rabb of the Alameen. Allahu Akbar. Look at this shaitan. Inni akhafu Allah Rabbul Alameen. You're denying Allah Ta'ala. Me, I fear Him. I am afraid of Him. Allahu Akbar Kabira. So then, I'm showing you also in some way that how is it that humanity leaves Allah Ta'ala? These things happen. These things happen. Alright? Next aspect third set of verses is, it's hard, I put a lot of verses here, but humanity, slide number 16, humanity turning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala out of need and desperation, which is not untrue, it's not fake, but it's a need and desperation that is self-serving. And it's not complete submission and obedience and belief either. Meaning turning to Allah Ta'ala in tough times and forgetting Him in good times, to put it simply. This is also something that there's a human tendency to do. Now, okay, so that would be a whole separate discussion. What of these things are in human nature? What are human tendency? Which one of these things are alterable through the teachings of Deen? Which ones are unalterable and remain as a core, necessary essence of humanity? We need to figure that out, to figure out the meanings of all these things. وَإِذَا مَسَّ الْإِنسَانَ الضُّرُّ. So when any human being is afflicted with any difficulty, da'ana. Allah says He call upon us. They start making dua to us, right? So the person, he lost their job, he makes dua to Allah Ta'ala. Then, Ya Allah Ta'ala, help me find a job. There's nothing wrong in that. But the question is, did you only turn to Allah Ta'ala when you have this need? And were you forgetful of Allah Ta'ala when everything was going fine? Shaykh, make dua for me, I have an exam tomorrow. Subhanallah. Huh? Allahu Akbar? Huh? What about Shaykh make dua for I miss Fajr today? Where was that message? Huh? You understand now? Right? Allahu Akbar. Alright? So here, he makes dua and Allah Ta'ala uses لِجَنْبِهِ أَوْ قَائِدٌ أَوْ قَائِمًا. Means in whatever position, state he may be. It's an expression to indicate their desperation, their desperate need for Allah Ta'ala. They feel a need which is a desperate need. They feel that need. They feel that need. فَلَمَا كَشَفْنَا عَنْهُ ذُرَّهُ. And then when we take away that difficulty from them, when we remove it from them, then what happens? مَرَّ كَأَنْ لَمْ يَدْعُنَا إِلَّا ذُرٍّ مَسَّهُ. Then he goes back as if he never even called upon us in the first place. Not as if I never helped him, as if he never called upon me. That's what Allah is saying. Allah, insan, this is nature of insan. Nature of insan. Alright? So then what happens? So زُيِّنَ لِلْمُسْرِفِينَ مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ وَكَذَلِكَ زُيِّنَ لِلْمُسْرِفِينَ مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. So for such people, Allah Ta'ala makes all their deeds appear beautiful to them. They think I'm doing just fine. They don't make tawbah for their sins. They don't turn to Allah Ta'ala on that. They think everything is just fine. I don't need Allah Ta'ala. When there's a problem, I turn to Allah Ta'ala. Then I go back to right where I was. Right where I was what? I don't view that Allah Ta'ala has a role in my life in telling me what to do or what not to do. Allah Ta'ala's role in my life is what? To help me out only when I'm in need. Then, and there are going to be so many verses. I have to slide number 17, right? Same, very similar thing, right? But a slightly different way of phrasing it. I think in a more strong way. وَلَئِنْ أَذَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ مِنَّا رَحْمَةً. When we let the human experience, dhawq means literally taste, but experience, feel my mercy. They taste the mercy of Allah Ta'ala. Allahu Akbar. ثُمَّ نَزَعْنَاهَا مِنْهُ. And then we take it away from them. We take it away from them. So what happens? إِنَّهُ لَيَئُوسٌ كَفُورٌ. What does it mean? So sometimes Allah Ta'ala sends His mercy, let's say your health, and Allah Ta'ala takes it away. Now what we should have done is we should have remembered that all the times I was healthy, but instead what happened? We abandoned all mayus. You have it in the layus. They become mayus, right? They get into despair. They get into despair and sorrow. And then what? Kafur, they become ungrateful of all that mercy Allah Ta'ala gave them. So they were grateful when they had it. The second it was taken away, they stopped their gratitude. Means for example, when they become sick, they don't feel grateful for all that health they had. They abandon it instantly. Right? Alright. Then, وَأَتَاكُم مِّن كُلِّ مَا سَأَلْتُمُوهُ. Allah Ta'ala will always give you something. Min again for ba'ad. Right? That always give you something from that which you asked Him. And in fact, this is a famous verse of Qur'an, وَإِن تُنْدُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ لَا تَحْصُوهَا. That were you to try to count and enumerate the blessings Allah Ta'ala has given you, you will never be able to enumerate and count them. Innal insana lazalumun kafar. That indeed insan is zalum and kafar. So zaif, hulu'a, zalum, kafar. Allahu Akbar. In what? In their relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In their relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You can say dhulum, persistent in wrongdoing, means ultimately unjust. Terribly unjust to their own self. And you can say stubbornly ingrate is fine. kafarun, deeply ungrateful. Now, obviously, so these are things that can change. This is the beginning of humanity. This is the human condition as it is. Alright? Okay. وَيَدُ الْإِنسَانُ بِالشَّرِّ. A person sometimes prays for things that are not good for them. Even you've seen people do that. We have known, for example, now to pick on some of the people here. Don't worry, nobody will know I'm picking on you. I won't even know I'm picking on you. But I know there must be some in this building. That somebody, if they ever pray to Allah Ta'ala for some unlawful romance, Ya Allah, please make him like me. Please let her like me. Right? But he or she may not be the best person for you. You weren't selecting them on the basis of their taqwa or their characteristics. You were just selecting them on the basis of their outward physical appearance. They may actually end up being a shar for you. Right? But you're praying for it. You're asking Allah Ta'ala for it. Even though it's something that's not good for you. And sometimes a person makes a dua for something that is khair. Makanu insanu ajula. Now another word, ajula. Right? Ajula is again this hastiness. Right? Hasty. Quick. Now what does it mean here? So quick that they don't pause and reflect first on what is the will and wish of Allah Ta'ala for me. So quick to pursue the wishes of their own nafs or the fancies of their own aql that they can't pause and reflect on what has Allah Ta'ala actually told me. Alright? So that was slide 19. Okay. Slide number 20. Here, okay, this is similar. Same thing. Right? That you will pray Allah Ta'ala when you are in need, and you will forget Allah Ta'ala when you come back to shore. So here Allah Ta'ala gave an example of those who pray to Allah Ta'ala when they are afflicted by something, when they're sick. At the seaside. You can see the modern example of this when there's heavy turbulence. Everybody closes their iPad and takes out their tasbih. Right? And when turbulence ends, they put back their tasbih and they open up their iPad. Alright? Alright. Then, okay, another thing. This is the same. These are the same. I grouped all these things for you. Right? The same concept. Right? When Allah Ta'ala blesses someone with something, then when they have it, they're happy. When they lose it, then they turn away from Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Right? Alright. Here, this is worth actually explaining this to you. وَإِذَا أَنَمْنَا عَلَى الْإِنسَانِ أَعْرَضَ. When we send our inamat on a human being, they turn away from us. This is something slightly different. Means, for example, if we give them luxury, they let that luxurious lifestyle make them forget us. When we gave them that wealth, they use that wealth to sin and disobey against us. Alright? وَنَبِجَانِبِهِ وَإِذَا مَسَّهُ الشَّرُّ كَانَ يَؤُوسًا. And if we ever afflict them with any test and trial and tribulation, which they view as an evil, as a hardship for them, then instead of turning to me, they become despair and lost, and they don't turn to me there. So this is another group that they turn to Allah Ta'ala neither in gratitude when He bestows upon them, and they don't turn to Allah Ta'ala in forgiveness when He tests them. 22. Here I just wanted to give you another. وَكَانَ الْإِنسَانُ قَتُورًا. And then insan has always been extremely greedy. Greedy, averse is a fancy word for greedy. Alright? Always wants more and more and more and more and more. Even if you had all of it. تَمْلِكُنَ خَزَائِنَ رَحْمَةِ رَبِّي. Allahu Akbar. If you were to own and possess the treasures of the mercy of Rabb, even then you would want more, and you would never want to let go of it, and you would want more. Allahu Akbar. It means that Allah Ta'ala gives lots of bounties and blessings for a person. A person doesn't say, okay, now this is enough dunya for me. Now I want more deen. He says, no, I want more dunya. I want more. I want to keep on getting more. I want to keep on getting more and more and more. Okay. Now, humanity, this answered a question before, but people read Quran, they don't get guided from it. وَلَقَدْ صَرَّفْنَا فِي هَذَا الْقُرْآنِ. Slide 23. وَلَقَدْ صَرَّفْنَا فِي هَذَا الْقُرْآنِ لِلنَّاسِ مِنْ كُلِّ مَثَلٍ وَكَانَ الْإِنسَانُ أَكْثَرَ شَيْءٍ جَدَلًا. Allah says, we have coined many examples, given many explanations, all types of ways of guidance. We have done linnas for people. But, وَكَانَ الْإِنسَانُ أَكْثَرَ شَيْءٍ جَدَلًا. Most of humanity chooses to contend and dispute and argue with what has been revealed. Alright? This also is pointing to a historical fact that in the time of Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, even in his blessed time, the majority of humans on earth were not believers. And from his time right up to today, the majority on earth has always been non-believers. Now some people, they like to ask this question, that if Islam is really true, how come the majority don't believe? All these verses answer the question. And if you were to do this, وَأَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ, because I told you I just did for you insan. We have the nas ones, but I can't, they're going to make it over 100. وَأَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ وَأَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا. Oh, it goes on. So many verses like that. So Allah is telling us. So it also gives us a perspective. For example, I'll give you another way you can understand this. If somebody claims to you Islam is about global domination and converting all humans on earth to Islam. Oh, look at all these verses. أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا. The vast majority of people will not. And that's been going on from the beginning of time right up till today. Beginning of history of Islam, beginning of Nabuwah, right up to today. The vast majority won't. So this is also a myth that Islam is about global domination and that every single human being will believe. Yes, what Islam is that every human being should be invited to believe, but the reality is not every one of them will, but we don't know who won't. So it's our job to invite everyone, but Allah Ta'ala will put hidayah in their heart. This is exactly what Allah told Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You don't know which one of them will believe or won't believe. So you have to knock on the door of Abu Lahab. You have to knock on the door of Abu Jahl. Allah Ta'ala is the one who knows. Alright? Okay. Khair, here, Allah Ta'ala is, again, kufur, this has come before. And here we have the same concept that turn to Allah Ta'ala when you need, and then you forget Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala later. Here's an interesting thing, that when Allah Ta'ala says that we grace them with something, إِذَا خَوَلْنَاهُ نِعْمَةً مِنَّا قَالَ إِنَّمَا أُوتِيتُهُ عَلَى إِلْمٍ. So Allah Ta'ala is saying that when we bestow something upon them, what do they say? Do they attribute it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? They say, no. This was given to me ala ilm. Ala ilm. What does it mean? My own knowledge, my own education. I say, Allah Ta'ala gave you this wealth. No. I earned an MBA degree. I earned it myself. Allahu Akbar Kabira. Another type of ungratefulness. Right? So then what does Allah Ta'ala say? That what is this? Bal hiya fitna. This is just a test, a trial for you. وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَهُمْ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. The vast majority of them don't realize. They don't have that realization. They don't have that understanding. Slide 26. Similar, that a human being will never tire from asking Allah Ta'ala of khair. Alright. But if any test comes upon him, he falls into despair. Now you can find a lot of believers are in this. Right? A lot of believers in this. You will find that sometimes Allah Ta'ala tests someone, and that man or woman falls into depression. And sometimes that depression, let it write the Shaykh, I was so depressed I couldn't pray for 2 days. Allahu Akbar Kabira. So depressed that you couldn't pray for 2 days. Okay, so you're not praying for 2 days, did it help you? So this decision of yours not to pray to Allah Ta'ala for 2 days, did it solve the problem? Did it solve your depression? No, it made you worse. But they don't realize it. They fall into despair. What does it mean? One meaning of fall into despair means this faya'us, laya'us, mayus. It means they fall into despair as if there is no Allah Ta'ala to whom they already promised wa iyyaka nasta'in. They forget that. They fall into despair as if there is no Allah Ta'ala who is willing to help them. As if there is no Allah Ta'ala to turn to in their time of difficulty. That's what it means to be mayus. And that meaning is not there in the word translation, you see. I'll give you another example. La'na. Allah Ta'ala, it says Allah Ta'ala curses them. So if I give you word for a translation, Allah Ta'ala curses. Now an ordinary atheist would say, what type of God curses? La'na doesn't mean Allah Ta'ala curses. That means Allah Ta'ala issues speech of profanity against them. La'na, when it means Allah Ta'ala does la'na, is called bu'ud an rahmatihi. Allah Ta'ala takes the person outside the reach of His mercy. Because Allah Ta'ala's mercy is all encompassing. So when Allah Ta'ala quote unquote curses a person, so I don't even like to use that word in English. When Allah Ta'ala sends His la'na on a person, it means that Allah Ta'ala casts that person, picks that person up and casts them outside their mercy. But if you do lafzi tarjuma, in Urdu we'll just say lanat. You won't even go anywhere because the Urdu is the same word as the Arabic. If you do English, it says curses. Can you imagine Allah Ta'ala's sha'an is He's going to curse? La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. But naturally you would have understood that if you went for the word for the English translation of Quran. So the ulama of tafsir, they explained that la'na is a verb. When the subject, doer of that verb is Allah Ta'ala, it means to cast out of His mercy. So for example, if I told somebody that so-and-so is accursed, even in English, accursed doesn't mean somebody used foul language on them. Accursed means it's over. He'll never get the mercy of Allah Ta'ala. Like Abu Lahab. Like Abu Lahab was accursed. But accursed means that Allah Ta'ala uses foul language on him? No way. Accursed meant that now Abu Lahab is never going to get the mercy of Allah Ta'ala. Allah Ta'ala picked him up and cast him outside of His mercy. Alright? Okay. وَإِذَا أَنَمْنَا عَلَى الْإِنسَانِ Okay, this we actually did for you already. Alright. Now, this is... Now, when Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, now think about this also. Sayyidina Rasulullah, all these verses were being revealed to the Prophet initially. So now imagine Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam is being told to invite humanity to Allah Ta'ala. Meanwhile, Allah Ta'ala is telling him that humanity is Jahul, Kafur, Zulum, Allahu Akbar, right? Meanwhile, Allah Ta'ala is telling them, humanity, they will call me when they need me and they will forget me when they don't. And at the same time, Allah Ta'ala has given Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam this mission. That you have to make them my ashik. You have to make them my abd. You have to make them my abid. You have to invite them to this. Right? And then sometimes, as you know in Sirah, there was a lot of opposition that Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu faced. So sometimes in the heart of the Prophet sallallahu he would be sad that the people, they're not. Right? They're falling into these things. The mushrikeen of Makkah, they're exactly that. They're being so ungrateful to Allah Ta'ala. Right? So then sometimes... Allah Ta'ala says another whole branch of tafsir, this whole workshop you could build. Those verses which Allah Ta'ala revealed in Qur'an with the original primary intended effect was to console and soothe the heart of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. That's a whole separate workshop to build. You will enjoy it if you were to do that one. You would really see how much Allah Ta'ala loves Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Alright? So here's one glimpse of that. فَإِنْ أَعْرَضُوا فَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ عَلَيْهِمْ حَفِيظًا وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. But you haven't been sent on them as a hafiza. So what is it? If they spurn the message, if they turn away from hidayah, if they refuse to accept iman, we haven't sent you to them as their hafiza, their caretaker, guardian, preserver. So what does that mean? If Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was not given that role, that my job is to enforce Islam on everybody, so what makes you think his ummah has been given that role? What makes you think his ummah has been given that role? Our job is to tell them, inform them, invite them. Right? Okay, now look. In alayka illa al-balagh. Then the only thing that is incumbent upon you is to deliver this message. You have not been sent to make sure, through any means, force or something, that they must accept it. Deliver, invite, explain, represent, lead by example. This is what you're supposed to do. So if Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam wasn't sent, hafiza, what makes you think today me and you are going to try to do this role? No, we have to do the same role. Which one? Balagh. Balagh. Alright? Alright, and then the same thing. We already shown that to you about when they feel the mercy of Allah Ta'ala, they become happy. Alright. Same thing. Similar stuff we've done. Okay. Now, next topic in this set of verses on Quranic humanism, where we're looking at where Allah Ta'ala uses the word insan in Qur'an. Now let's do this slide number 33 before I move to the next one. Am lil insani ma tamanna. Now this is also right. You won't get everything you wish for. This is a the explanation of this. You won't get everything that you wish for on earth. Even if you believe in Allah, yes. Even if you obey Allah, yes. Even if you follow the entire Sunnah, yes. Even if you follow the entire Sharia, yes. Even if you leave all sins, yes. You still won't get everything you want. So that's another concept of human beings are told how to view reality. In other words, this world is not Darul Fath. You won't get every single thing you want in this world. That's coming. That's akhirah. That's later. That's later. So sometimes I tell you this because some people, they don't understand. They say, I don't understand. I made tawbah from sin. I started practicing deen. I'm praying 5 times a day now. And I'm still stuck at a 2.0 GPA. Right? I don't understand. Right? Once I got a phone call. It was my very first month teaching at Lums. I got a call from a girl from another city. Sir, I didn't get admission into Lums. And crying and crying and crying. And I don't understand. I made so many du'as to Allah Ta'ala. So then I asked her grades, and I understood. I asked her O-level results. I understood clearly. I understood why she didn't get the admission. She couldn't understand. Because she thought it was based on her du'as and her taqwa. And mashallah, I'm sure she was very pious and observant. And she was, all the things she said she was. But that doesn't mean you get everything you wish for. Alright? So Allah's teaching us. We get so much guidance from these things. Alright? Alright. Next set of verses is that things that Allah Ta'ala wants us to reflect upon and consider, and these are things that could become sources of our hidayah. Even something so simple as this, فَلْيَنْظُرُ الْإِنسَانُ إِلَّا تَعَامِهِ. So one is okay to reflect on خَلْقُ السَّمَوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ, the masterful astronomy, astrophysics, or to reflect on the wondrous nature of human anatomy. Allah says, even just look at what you eat. Even just look at the food. What does it mean? So it is a bit deep. This notion, like Allah Ta'ala put so much ghiza, risk in this earth, that there's 6 billion human beings alive today. Yes, there are some who are suffering from famine, right? But that's not because there's not enough food on earth. That's not the reason. Yet the food of the rich is not going to the poor. All the food that the people who don't finish their plates throw away, all of that food annually is enough to eradicate famine on earth. Right? Okay? And in fact, the ushr, there was a person once who did this study in the World Bank and IMF. There's one thing is zakat, one is called ushr. Ushr is the particular charity that a person should give on their grain, like on wheat and on crops. He said if ushr was implemented, all the countries who have wheat reserves and all the farmers who have wheat oligopolies, if they were to pay ushr, that wheat would be enough to eradicate global famine. Right? So Allah Ta'ala placed it there. So that itself is amazing. Allah Ta'ala placed enough crops, vegetables, fruits, animals, etc. on this earth to be a source of sustenance for us, for humanity. Alright? This can also be something. قُتِلَ الْإِنسَانُ مَا أَكْفَرَهُ. Alright. Sometimes a human being, this is a strong word, and so they're struggling to translate it because qatl literally means kill, right? Qutil al-insan means to be killed, that humanity is killed, right? But here again you have to turn the knob. Allah Ta'ala doesn't mean it literally, as in death. Allah Ta'ala means, when you use this majhul, it's called qutil, it's what he's saying, self-destruction, right? Why? Ma akfarahu, his denial and disbelief actually ends up destroying him. Now secularism says, no, there's no destruction in humanity if you abandon God. No problem. Life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness will continue. Progress, advancement, technology will continue. They have a different standard of assessing destruction or not, right? This means spiritual self-destruction. Alright? Alright. Now, this is similar, we've done this view, the ungratefulness of humanity. This is another word, كَلَّا إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَيَطْغَى. Yet another word, alright? Here's another one, إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَكَنُودٌ. Another word, right? There's a long, intense vocabulary. Alright? إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ. This is another word, right? That you will already know from Surah Al-Asr. Alright, then, أَيَحْسَبُ الْإِنسَانُ أَن يُتْرَكَ السُّدَى. That does a human being think they will be left completely free? That there will be no message given to them as to how to live their life? that there will be no scripture, book, wahi, Qur'an that will tell them what to do, that there will be Nabi, no prophet who will come, who will be a model for them? Do they think they've been created free? Some say this, yes. Second, that man is born free. They say man is born free and everywhere he is in chains. Right? We say man was born in the chains of these things. Man was born in the chain of being Zulum and Kafur and Hulu and all of the things. And he was liberated from that by following the Quran and Sunnah and Sharia. He gets liberated from all of these things when he accepts Iman. Alright? Khair, this also has been done about 38, slide 30 has been done, man has been hasty. Slide 39. This is interesting. وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ وَنَعْلَمُ مَا تُوَسْوِسُ بِهِ نَفْسُهُ وَنَحْنُ أَقْرَبُ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ حَبْلِ الْوَرِيدِ. So what Allah is saying is, look, understand also that you, insan, are created, and you are created by your Creator, and your Creator who created you knows you intimately. Right? Like the one who builds the machine says, I know this machine intimately. I'll tell you exactly what it's going to do. I can hear the whirring of its parts. I can listen and tell you have to change this valve or that bearing because I created it. Means I designed it, I invented it, I built it. Right? A top-notch mechanic, he just listens to the engine, he can tell you. Right? What needs to be fixed? Is it the timing belt? Is it this? Is it whatever the words are? Right? So Allah is saying, وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ. Indeed, we. I'll also show you this when Allah uses the we. It doesn't mean Allah is plural. This is called sha'an. It means Allah is saying, and I in all my majesty, might and splendor created insan. I in my sha'an. I in all my majesty, might and splendor. There's no lafzi tarjuma that can explain that to you. Vocabulary will say na means we. And so he'll also translate it for you, the English fellow. It is we who have created. It shouldn't be and I in all my majesty. This is the way it should be translated. It should never be translated as we. And I in my sha'an and my azmat created insan. Wa na'lamu. And I in all my majestic knowledge know. Ma tuwaswisu bihi nafsu. Even the whispering thoughts, even the fancies that come to you. Right? What your nafs whispers to you. وَنَحْنُ أَقْرَبُ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ حَبْلِ الْوَرِيدِ. And we are more intimately near to you than your own carotid artery. Allahu Akbar. This is another aspect of humanity, that humanity has intimate nearness with the divine being. To be human is to be near Allah. To be human is to be known by Allah. To be human is to be created by Allah. There's another aspect. Alright? Ya ayyuhal insan ma gharraka bi rabbikal kareem. Right? This is, you know very well. To be human, okay, now let me do this for you. Slide 39 was what? To be human is to be created by Allah Ta'ala. To be human is to be known by Allah Ta'ala. To be human is to be intimately near to Allah. Slide 40, to be human is to be wanted by Allah. Allahu Akbar. If you could get an atheist to realize this, to be human is to be desired by Allah. To be human is to be wanted by Allah. To be human is to be yearned for by Allah. Allahu Akbar. That's what it means. مَا غَرَّكَ بِرَبِّكُ الْكَرِيمِ. That's not the word for translation. Here Allah is asking a rhetorical question. O humanity, what in the world is it that has distracted you, deluded you from your Rabb, Rabbika, from your Rabb who is still Kareem with you even though you have denied Him? So why is your Rabb still being Kareem with you? Why is He saying, I'm yours, Birabbika? Why is He addressing insan that I'm your Rabb? Because He wants you. Because He yearns for you. Why is He calling this up? Because He's missing you. He's missing you. He's saying, what's the matter with you? You don't miss me while I miss you. That's what He's telling the atheist. What's happened to you? What in the world has ensnared you so much that you don't miss me, whereas I still miss you? Allahu Akbar Kabira. This is also what it means to be human. To understand, you must explain to them Allah Ta'ala's message to them in this world. Don't go to Allah Ta'ala's message on day of judgment as you will go to Jahannam. That's later. You're talking to them now. Allah Ta'ala's message to them now is not you're going to Jahannam. Allah Ta'ala's message now is this. I'm missing you. Where are you? What took you away from me? Where have you been? Yeah. فَأَيْنَ تَذْهَبُونَ. That's in Quran. Where'd you go? Allah Ta'ala addresses atheists. فَأَيْنَ تَذْهَبُونَ. Where did you go? Where have you been? Why aren't you with me? Yeah. Allahu Akbar Kabira. This is what it means to be human. To be human means to be eternally besought by Allah Ta'ala. Pre-eternally. To be pre-eternally besought by Allah Ta'ala. To be mu'min means to be eternally besought by Allah Ta'ala. Alright? Next slide number 41. Here, this is now life. What's the meaning of life? Okay. Ya al insan. Allah Ta'ala is going to explain, oh humanity, the meaning of life. إِنَّكَ قَادِهٌ إِلَى رَبِّكَ كَدْهًا فَمُلَاقِيهِ. That your life is a step-by-step journey leading to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that journey it's a journey of endurance. It's a journey of endurance. It's a journey of striving. And what will ultimately happen? فَمُلَاقِيهِ. And you will reach the end of the journey. That's called Day of Judgment. You will meet your Lord on the Day of Judgment. That's what life is. Life is leading up, like every journey is leading up to a destination. That's called a journey. So life is a journey. That means there's a destination. Live the journey for the destination. Allahu Akbar. So people, Allah Ta'ala is guiding humanity to its purpose, to its reality. Alim and Insan ma lam ya'lam. I've already done a few. The Hidayah. Allah Ta'ala will give you knowledge. Allah Ta'ala will give you knowledge which the human race never knew and never could have known. So again, that's what I've already done for you. Knowledge beyond the akal. So to be human is to be taught by Allah. To be human is to be taught by Allah. To be human is to have Allah Ta'ala as your teacher. فَلْيَنْظُرِ الْإِنسَانُ مِمَّا خُلِقَ. Alright, then this is another set of things of the physical creation. Alright. لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ التَّقْوِيمِ. Now, there are verses that I didn't put the whole workshop for you. There are several verses. Maybe we just gave you the verses. You can see these as samples. I'm so sorry, slide number 45. Verses that are samples of the physical aspect of creation. Allah Ta'ala says we created from a nutfa, mughza. There's so many aspects to that. Right? Going back to slide number 43. So generally, first Allah Ta'ala says, just generally reflect on how you are physically created. So the physical creation aspect, human embryology, go back to slide 45, as a sampling is in these 4 verses and a few others. But there's another aspect of your creation, slide 44. لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ التَّقْوِيمِ. So there's 2 aspects to your creation. One is your physical. That was from a sperm drop, right? But there's another aspect. One was your physical creation, that's from a sperm drop. Second was your nafs. And what was that? That was all the things you saw. Zuluman, Jahula, Kufura. That's the third aspect. What? That's your ruh. And your ruh has been made what? Fi ahsan at-taqweem. Your ruh has been made fashioned in the most noble and virtuous and beautiful of ways. You are a being. To be human is to be a being of pure, radiant, spiritual beauty. ثُمَّ رَدْنَاهُ فِي أَسْفَلَ سَافِلِينَ. Then along with that ruh, your ruh was created first. Your body and nafs are created in this world. Your ruh was created first. Alright? لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ التَّقْوِيمِ. Indeed, Allah is saying, indeed, I, Allah, in all my wisdom, might, and majesty, created humanity in the best of forms, created their ruh. ثُمَّ رَدَدْنَاهُ أَسْفَلَ سَافِلِينَ. And then I added a nafs and a body and brought them down to the lowest level. Now it's up to them. Will they live their humanity for the sake of their nafs and their body? They will be creatures like animals or even below. Or will they live their life for the sake of their ruh? They will be ahsan. They will be even greater than the angels. Allahu Akbar. So what does it mean? That humanity then has an extreme range of potential. Humanity has been endowed with the widest range of potential of all of creation. It's up to us though. Now obviously this will make a person thirsty. Give me that hidayah, give me that Qur'an, send me that Nabi, so I can become like this. Don't leave me to materialism and secularism and liberalism. I'll end up like that. You understand? Alright? So this one verse is basically the answer to all those other things. Right? Alright. Slide number 46. Now, how is that going to happen? Alright. وَأَنْ لَيْسَ الْإِنسَانِ إِلَّا مَا سَعَى. No human being will ever attain anything except that which they strive for. You want to become astronaut taqweem, you're going to have to work for it. And actually, contrary to what people think, it's not just laziness. You want to be a person of nafs, you have to work for it. You also have to make effort to sin. Sin is not effortless. It requires some effort. Slide 47. Now another set is this about our changing. Number one, change as an individual. Slide 47. And number two, where did it go? Sorry. Okay. Maybe this is what I meant. Number one, change as an individual. Slide 46. That no person will change unless they make the effort to change for themselves. Might be one verse missing. Let's see if it comes up later. Number 47 is change of a community, or change of all humanity as a race. Whether that you can view it as any collective form of humanity. So collective humanity is family, then society, community, then society, then if you have nation state polity, and then you have global race of humanity. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُوا. Allah Ta'ala will never change a collectivity until they change themselves. They change themselves. So if you want, for example, the halat in country to be, the situation in any country to become better, now there's two ways that can happen. You can make the situation in the country better. That's not what this verse is talking about. Second way is Allah Ta'ala makes the situation in the country better. If you want that second thing to happen, that Allah Ta'ala makes the situation in that country better, you will have to make your situation better. The individuals in that country will have to make their condition, means their taqwa, their deen, their closeness to Allah Ta'ala better. And until and unless they do that, Allah Ta'ala won't make the condition of the country better. Now there may be certain human forces that can try to make the condition of the country better. They may be called development economists. They may be called many different things. Right? But if you want Allah Ta'ala to make the condition of the country better, the citizens of that country will have to make their spiritual condition better. That's simple. And so if you see in a country that the citizens as an entirety, as a collective entity, the citizenry, which in this country is 180 million people, are not trying to make their spiritual condition better, Allah Ta'ala will not make the condition of this country better. That's simple. Alright? Okay, now, next is akhlaq. So this is this notion of morality and ethics. Alright? To be human is to be moral. What I want to explain here is that Islam doesn't make any claim. Now our friend here. Yes, Islam doesn't make any claim that morality and ethics only comes from Sharia. No, morality and ethics comes from Allah Ta'ala. Some morality and ethics, Allah Ta'ala is inspired in a human being in their very own humanity. What does it mean? That to be human means to know certain rights and wrongs. But there are other rights and wrongs you wouldn't know until you're a mu'min. Like the example I gave you, eating pork is wrong. To be human doesn't mean to know that. To be human does not mean to know that eating pork is wrong. To be mu'min means to know that eating pork is wrong. However, to be human, there are certain rights and wrongs. So that Allah Ta'ala has endowed humanity itself. This is called fitra. Fitra, inherent. So you will see here. So kulli ibadi, so here there's a little bit of ibad here as well. To tell Now, it depends, right? If you say my creatures, then it means for everyone. So they should speak in the most kindly manner. They should have nobility in speech between themselves. Why? Because shaitan is always trying to create niza'. Niza' means disputation and severance of ties between people. So this interesting thing, that if people like to sometimes this question, that okay, if Allah Ta'ala said ground shaitan is an enemy to humanity, so what are we supposed to do about it? Allah Ta'ala will give you hidayah, how to protect yourself from the enmity of that enemy. That's Allah Ta'ala's, part of Allah Ta'ala's hidayah. So one example is this, that one way shaitan does enmity, he tries to cause strife and discord between people. So Allah Ta'ala gave hidayah. You should speak. Yaqulu lati hiya ahsan. Just your tone, tenor, language should be noble and virtuous. That will protect you from shaitan's enmity to put discord and strife between your hearts. Importance of speech, a mannered speech, kind, gentle tone, honest, truthful, sincere words. It's hidayah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Slide 49. Now, وَوَسَيْنَا الْإِنسَانَ, not just the believers. Allah Ta'ala saying, and again we, means, and I, Allah Ta'ala, in my infinite wisdom, infinite might, majesty, power, have enjoined upon humanity, not just believers, humanity, بِوَالِدَيْهِ husna, that they should have husn, virtuous, noble, excellent behavior with their parents. There's an inherent morality. This isn't some exclusively Islamic teaching or just for mu'mineen. So to be human is to have husn towards the parents. Alright? So this is the concept of, so when sometimes people say, the secularists will try to say, no, secularism presents an ethics that is universal. And Islam has an ethical code only for its believers. Don't fall in that deception. Islam has ethics that are universal. Look at Qur'an. وَوَسَيْنَا الْإِنسَانَ. It's universal. It's a universal ethical code, a universal moral code. Alright? It's slide 49. Slide 49. Alright? Now, interesting. Now I want you to watch this, what Allah Ta'ala said. وَإِن جَاهَدَاكَ لِتُشْرِكَ بِي مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٍ فَلَا تُطِعْهُمَا إِلَيَّ مَرْجِئُكُمْ فَأُنَبِّكُمْ بِمَا كُنْتُمْ تَعْمَلُونَ. So what does Allah say here? Remember, what are you supposed to do with parents? Husn. What you won't do is, if your parents ask you, and jahada means they contend with you, the two of them contend with one you child, to do what? To do shirk, to ascribe a partner with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is something on which they have no basis in knowledge. Then what should you do? فَلَا تُطِعْهُمَا. You should not obey your two parents. إِلَيَّ مَرْجِئُكُمْ. Allah says, to me is your ultimate return. And what will happen when you do that return to me? فَأُنَبِّئُكُمْ بِمَا كُنْتُمْ تَعْمَلُونَ. I'm going to inform you about each and every single thing that you used to do. Now, turn the knob. Step 1, you leave the knob at 0. Shirk means literally don't believe in any other deity. But shirk in our deen also means for the believer, right? Because once you have iman, then you'll say this verse doesn't apply to me. It still applies to you. Shirk means to set up a rival to Allah Ta'ala. Slide number 50. Here it comes again. وَوَسَيْنَا الْإِنسَانَ بِوَالِدَيْهِ حَمَلَتْهُ أُمُّهُ وَهْنًا عَلَى وَهْنٍ وَفِصَالُهُ فِي عَامَيْنِ أَنِشْكُرْ لِي وَلِوَالِدَيْكَ إِلَيَّ الْمَصِيرُ. Now here Allah Ta'ala adds another word here, that's shukr. To be grateful to me and your parents. And this is very strong. Allah Ta'ala linked it. I mean, Allah Ta'ala saying, be grateful to me and be grateful to your parents. Right? So there's husn, there's shukr. You'll never find the word itaat, that you obey your parents. That's not like obedience is to Allah Ta'ala and the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Husn and shukr and khidmah and service and love and devotion and affection and help. That's for parents. Alright? Alright. Now, another وَوَسَيْنَا الْإِنسَانَ بِوَالِدَيْهِ إِحْسَانًا. Another way Allah Ta'ala explained this in Qur'an. Alright? Okay. It's a very nice, longer verse where Allah Ta'ala mentions the importance of parents and love for parents, and Allah Ta'ala is giving you one as a quote-unquote logic, right? That look, don't you see how your mother undertook so much labor pains or pregnancy pains to bear you, right? Okay? Alright. By the way, also I want to make this clear. When Allah Ta'ala gives a reason, there's another aspect of Rasul. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives a reason, the reason isn't the only reason you do that ruling. So for example, if somebody, see, when you take the rationalist approach to Qur'an, so what would that mean? Well, in my case, apparently my mom tells me she had a very easy pregnancy and she had no pains whatsoever. Therefore, I don't have to be nice to her because Allah Ta'ala gave me this reason why I have to be nice to my mom. No, you cannot predicate Islam on reason. Reason is a small toothpick. And Qur'an is the eternal speech of Allah Ta'ala. You don't put it on the toothpick of your reason. That if the reason isn't there, I won't do it. No, the reason is just additional information. It's not even reason, it's encouragement. It's a method of explanation by Allah Ta'ala to try to put in our heart a feeling of indebtedness to our mother. It's not the reason. Similarly, paradise lying at the feet of the mother isn't why you're nice to your mother. That I'm going to do it for the sake of Jannah. No, you're supposed to do it because she's your mother. That's not the reason you're nice to your mother. But yes, it's a way of explaining an encouragement. Alright? Okay, here. Now, secular humanism and Quranic humanism, compared ethics and spirituality. Alright. Very briefly, slide number 53. Sorry, I haven't always been telling them. I hope the online people, you get some feedback from them. Sometimes I say the word next, sometimes right? Okay. Slide number 53. History of Western ethics. Natural law and positive law. Alright. What happened, and what I'm doing basically is I'm relating ethics and law for you. Okay, it's basically law and ethics. I'm not just doing pure philosophical ethics. I'm talking about law and ethics. Why? Because when you talk about ethics in its relation to law, it's those ethics that human beings are asked to comply with, right? And in the personal sphere, people have their own ethical views. They do whatever they want. That's a separate thing. That's not something to compare with Islam, because Islam is talking about an ethics that you have to comply with, right? Islam is not talking about ethics that are optional. We're talking about compliance, adherence, all right? So the adherence, compliance part is when you bring a little bit of law into it, right? So in the history of Western law, history of Western law and ethics, there were two traditions. First, it was called natural law. The natural law tradition believed that morality and ethics should inform and guide the law. Simply speaking, it means that whatever is unethical should be illegal. Very simple concept. That if something is unethical, it should be illegal. Now, how will we determine what is unethical then? Because that means then the law framed the question, for me to decide what is illegal, I need to now determine what is unethical. They originally, for many centuries, were following Christian scripture. And so the Bible would teach them what is unethical. They had no problem with religion for this. And they would turn to religion for ethics. Even in the secular tradition, there was a long period of this. That secular meant in the sense that we won't require you to believe in it, but we will continue to take our ethics from the Bible. You may or may not take your theology from the Bible, but we will still take our ethics from the Christian tradition. Alright? So the notion is that the natural, we will derive what is ethical from scripture, and what is unethical will be declared as illegal. Alright. Then there was a shift to what is called the positive law tradition. The positive law tradition was that ethics and law should be separated. Ethics and law should be separated. What does it mean? What is unethical does not mean it should be illegal. There should be some other way, some other factors of consideration in which we would determine what will be illegal or not. So for example, you will find that there were things that they viewed to be unethical, but they legalize it, such as pornography, such as gambling, such as certain other things. Now if you ask them, they will say, yes, this is unethical behavior. Nobody can say this is ethical, right? This is unethical, immoral things, but we will legalize it. So it began in the beginning actually with drinking, right? I'm giving you more a version now of American history, because that's what I'm more familiar with. So in America, there was a period when alcohol was prohibited, so therefore there was the prohibition, right? Why was it prohibited? Because it was unethical to drink. But as you know, secretly, many, many people were drinking, right? Karachi Gymkhana, Sindh Club, PC Hotel, nahi samjhe, secretly people were drinking. And then it became not so secretly. And pretty much, it was quite open and people knew about it, right? So eventually they said, okay, we end prohibition and we legalize the sale and consumption of liquor and alcohol. Right? Okay. Now that doesn't mean, they said, look, actually what we're going to do is take it out of this issue of ethics. Forget whether it's unethical or not, so we have to put another value. So actually there's another word we forgot to put here for positive law, and that's freedom. This is actually the most important thing, word that would have been freedom. That a person should be free to drink. A person should be free to drink. In other words, what they meant is a person should have the freedom and liberty to do unethical things. Alright? A person should be free to look at whatever they want on the internet. They should have the freedom to, and this is how they frame it. The rights, freedoms, liberties. Alright? Has nothing to do with it being ethical or unethical. Alright? So what happened in positive law is now what is ethical doesn't equal law. Unethical things can be, and many things are legal. Right? Alright. Now, there were other considerations of law. The first one was freedom. Second would be fairness. Okay, what's unfair should be illegal. What's unjust should be illegal. What's inequitable should be illegal. And Islam is fine with a lot of those things, right? But I'm just showing you how when you shift away from ethics and you shift away from scripture, then you need some other categories, factors on which you will make the determination of what is illegal. Alright? Now, what does that mean? There's no freedom in Islam. So the way I will explain this to you is that this was known as a principle of liberalism, right? So the real basic foundational tenet of liberalism was articulated by John Stuart Mill in his classic seminal work on liberty. And what he does basically is what people in political philosophy, moral philosophy call the harm principle. And I'll phrase that to you very simply. That an individual should be completely free to do anything they want as long as it does not harm another individual and it does not harm society. An individual should be completely free to do anything they want. That's nafs. Alright? They want, as long as it does not harm another individual or harm society. Everybody got that? This is the stuff I normally do on the board, so we didn't do it, but we can't use the board because the women can't see and the online people can't see. Alright? So I'm dictating to you what I read on the board. This clear? Alright. Now, as far as the second part goes, so we're now going to just start comparative ethics. Islam agrees with the second part also. The second part. Do not harm another individual and do not harm society. So there's complete agreement there. That's not an issue. Alright? You will find this, those of you who speak Urdu, bas mein kisi ka nuksan to nahi kar raha. Right? Main sharab peeta hu magar qaum ka khoon nahi peeta. Huh? Ring a bell? Right? So that's the John Stuart Mill harm principle. Right? Alright. Islam accepts the second part of the sentence, but it adds something more. Adds something more. What is that? So I'll give you the Islamic version, Islamic formulation of this. An individual should be completely free to do anything they want. It's the same, the whole first sentence is the same. I'm just going to add something at the end. An individual should be completely free to do anything they want as long as it does not harm an individual or society or their deen or the deen. Or their deen or somebody else's deen or deen in society or the deen itself. That's also sacred for us. So for secularism, the only thing that's sacred is the society. You can't harm society, but you can harm deen if you want. No problem. So for us, we say, no, we accept that 100%. The society is sacred. The other is sacred. Don't harm the other individual. Sacred. Don't harm society. Sacred. But you can't harm your deen because your ruh is also sacred. That's why we won't allow you to drink. So a person says, why can't I get drunk alone in my room? I say, yes, from a liberal perspective, the answer is, of course you can get drunk in your room. Because you're not going to harm any individual and you're not going to harm society. Yes, we'll put laws, no drunk driving. We'll put regulations to make sure you don't harm others, right? But you want to get drunk alone in your room on a Friday night and have a hangover Saturday morning? Go for it. Islam says no. Right? Because yes, you didn't harm another individual, but you harmed your deen. He says, I'm not harming the deen. You're not harming the deen by drinking in your room. Am I harming anybody else's deen? No, you're not. But you're harming your own deen. So yeah, Islam has that aspect in it. Because it's come to guide humanity away from self-harm. Now, if you were to look now, I ask you to build another workshop. What did Allah Ta'ala say in Quran many times? الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ. They harm themselves. So what Quran has come to guide people out from this. Don't hurt yourself. Don't hurt your ruh. Don't hurt your heart. Don't do these things. Again, right, others, like for example, an environmentalist would tell you no, right? They say, what? I want to do anything but I want. What do you want to do? I want to make a very environmentally unfriendly factory so I can make $1 extra per. Shabir, what are things that factories make? Allahu Akbar, okay, for gene. Okay. I want to make an extra $1 per pair of jeans. This is what I want. I want more money. So, but because you chose the less environmentally safe machinery, you're causing more pollution that's harming society. It doesn't matter. I want more money. Right? So they actually do that also. They do that also. Right? Now sometimes the law tries to catch up with them, right? And have pollution tax and have regulations and things, right? But sometimes they're trying to evade that. That's a separate thing. The legal system might try to regulate that, but they try to evade that. So that's unethical behavior, even by their standards. Right? But here the difference was this, right? That you can't harm your own deen, you can't harm somebody else's deen, because if you get drunk in your room at your night, your children will see that. Your children will know, my father's a drunkard. That's harming your children's deen. I say that's harming your children, full stop. If you ask me, and if you ask Alcoholics Anonymous, that's harming your children, full stop. But fine. You're harming their deen. You're not free to do that. You're not free to do that. The Western concept of ethics, I'm totally free to do that. Alright. So here, one can go on and on about so many different examples, but this is basically the difference. Right? This is the main difference. So the key thing is the difference is not about harming in society. There's agreement on that. There's agreement on that. It's number one, disagreement about what constitutes harming another individual. There's certain things that we think are unethical that do harm another individual. But they set that standard a little bit low. They say, no, my drinking doesn't harm anybody. You ask the wife of a drunkard, she says, his drinking has caused me great harm in my life. She will say, my whole life I've suffered because I'm married to a drunkard. She can't take that in a court of law. Nothing is in his right. It's his right to be drunk every night. So we define harm to an individual differently also. We're more liberal than them. So we're more true to the principle. We prevent more harm to individual than they do. And then we add another element that a person shouldn't harm their deen. Now what I will tell you, there is still a difference between the private and the public realm. If a person tries to harm the deen publicly, that will be sanctioned legally. If they try to harm their own deen publicly, that can also be sanctioned. But if they try to harm their own deen, not somebody else's deen and not the deen, but they harm their own deen in the privacy of their own home, Islam doesn't always regulate that. Islam doesn't make that claim that we're going to be able to stop everyone from doing their own individual private sin. No, that's outside law. That comes in spirituality. That's not viewed as legality. That's spirituality. Right? Okay? All right. Next is, let me just go see how many signs I have. Okay, up to, after that went back to Imam Ghazali, right? Okay, so next very quickly, I'll just run through this with you because I have a few minutes left. Slide number 54. Law and ethics. I don't think we need to do this for you. Slide number 55. Another aspect of it, why is it different? Why is the system different? Because Islamic ethics, obviously the word Islamic is there, so it's an understanding of ethics that takes into account the entire Quran and Sunnah. And so what to be learned from that is this notion of divine sovereignty and human submission. That Allah Ta'ala is Malik and we are Abd. Right? So there is a notion of submission, subservience, obedience. And disobedience to Allah is unethical. That's also part of it. There's another aspect of the difference is because secular ethics removes God from the equation, right? God has nothing to do with what's ethical or not. In other words, let me put it to you another way. To be a good person, so for secular humanism, you can be a perfectly good human being without Allah Ta'ala. That's why secular humanism is so different from Quranic humanism. And for Quranic humanism, there's no way you can be a good human being without loving Allah Ta'ala, without believing in Allah Ta'ala. So don't make this confusion a lot of people make. There is all the same adab, akhlaq are also in Islam. But we say that that is this necessary but not sufficient condition to be a good human being. To be a good human being, you have to be good with others, and you have to be good with society, and you have to be good with Allah Ta'ala. And you have to be good with the Prophet ﷺ. This is a fourfold definition of good. And in secular humanism, to be a good human being, to be a good person, you just have to be good with others and good with society. You don't have to be a good abd of Malik. You don't have to be a good ummati of Rasulullah ﷺ. They took that out of the definition of goodness. So this is another difference in the ethical system. Alright? So we don't separate this. That, like sometimes people say in Urdu, wo acha insaan hai, magar namazi nahi hai. We say namazi nahi hai, acha insaan nahi hai bhai. It takes points away. We don't separate this. This is the big difference. And the secularization of many Muslims have made them think like this also. The insaan to acha hai, magar namaz nahi padta. No, it's part of his insaniya. His ubudiyya was part of his insaniya. Now, another verse, which was because it was in the ins and nas, I couldn't share this with the workshop. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. So to be human is to worship. It's part of being insan, is to have ibadah and ubudiyya. So he's not a good insan. He's not a good insan. He doesn't follow the sunnah. He doesn't love the Prophet ﷺ. He's not a good ummati to his nabi. He's not a good insan. Just like, for example, if you said this is a really good person, but they're not a good wife to their husband, you said, that's not a good person. You'll say, that's not a good person. If I tell you he's a really good person, but he's not a good father to his children, you say, no, then he must not be a good person. That's what you would say. You would say, then he must not be a good person. You would refuse to accept this proposition. If I told you he is a good person, but he's not a good father, you would say, no, then he must not be a good person. So we say the same thing. He is a good person, but he is not a good ummati to his nabi. Islam says, no, he must not be a good person. He is a good person, but he is not a good abd to his Rabb. He must not be a good person. Our definition of goodness includes this divine sovereignty and human submission, side 55, and the search for divine pleasure. For example, he's a good person. Why? She's a good person because she makes everyone happy. It's not enough. It's not enough. For example, if I told you, she's a good person. Why? She makes everyone happy except her husband. You say, she's not a good person. That's what you would say. She's not a good person. I said, no, she makes everyone happy. But you said, but except her husband. She's not a good person. If I say she's a good person, she makes everyone happy except her children. You say, she's not a good person. I say, she is a good person. She makes everyone happy. But you said, except her children. Because of that, she's not a good person. So same way in Islam, he is a good person because he makes everyone happy, except he doesn't make Allah Ta'ala happy. He's not a good person. She's a good person, she makes everyone happy, except she doesn't make Sayyidina Rasulullah SAW happy. She's not a good person. Do you understand? So all the akhlaq, etiquettes, morals, it's all there in Islam. The point is that there's more. There's more. Our definition of good and ethical is more wasi'ah, is more deep, is more wide. And this secular concept of what is good and ethical is more narrow. And the difference was simply that they took Allah Ta'ala out of the equation, they took the Prophet ﷺ out of the equation, they took religion out of the equation. That's the only difference. It's not that they have more morals and we have less. The morals part about other individual and society is the same, and I told you we're even more on that. We're even more on that. And in secular ethics, it's not unethical to have lust. In Islamic ethics, it's unethical to have lust for a ghair mahram. In secular ethics, it's not unethical to have pride. It's no longer, the Christians will view that. But the atheist secular ethics has no problem with pride, has no problem with jealousy. Those things are gone from them. But for us, these are negative feelings to have for other people. This is an unethical relationship with another person. To have envy for them, to have jealousy for them. So we have more on the individual, we have more on society, and we include Allah Ta'ala, Rasulullah Sallallahu and Deen in our definition of what is ethical and what is good. Alright? Okay. Khair, this next slide, number 56, I will do for an Islamic law. Slide number 57, the very last thing I will tell you, and then we really absolutely must go, those of us who are present from the men immediately to the masjid, inshallah, is if, remember, I bring back spirituality, the spiritual approach. So another thing that we have that secular humanism doesn't have is the spiritual aspect of ethics, which is what? So if you look at the side, there's one thing that's permissible. So it's okay, that's permissible means it's not unethical, right? Then there's preferable, but I would say this is more ethical. You can talk like that. This would be a more ethical decision to make. And then there's ideal. Ideal. So Allah Ta'ala in Qur'an is calling us to ideal. These are words. Get rizq, which is halal, but also tayyib. Halal is permissible. Tayyib is ideal. These are words in Qur'an. So the ethical framework of Qur'an is Allah Ta'ala inviting us to the ideal. Secular ethics stops at permissible. Because there's no spirituality. So there's no concept of that. There's no concept of is your job lawful? Yeah, not breaking the law. That's it. You try to explain, is your job tayyib? This I have no such concept. I'm earning money under the law. That's it. What do you mean is it tayyib? They've no concept of that. Right? So in Islam there's ahsan, awla, atka, afzal, azka, tayyib. These are words in Quran. So ideal, what's the ultimate ideal? So if you look at the next slide, slide 57, Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's how ideal an ethical creature you're supposed to become. لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. And like I explained to those of you with us on Sunday night, even some characteristics of Allah Ta'ala. For example, the Prophet ﷺ said that be merciful to others the way Allah Ta'ala is merciful. Allahu Akbar. That's a high level of behavior. That's a high level of behavior. Alright? And then this notion what I told you as far as the spirituality side, there's no legality. So there's no enforcement here. I cannot enforce, Islamic law doesn't enforce a person to earn tayyib. Right? But there's encouragement. So the permissible, the first line on the side, what's permissible and impermissible, ethically will also be legal and illegal. Ethics equals law. So obviously legal and illegal law is about enforceability. It's not all law has to be enforced. Right? But when you're talking about the next level here, preferable, or the ideal, or characteristics of Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or certain aspects of characteristics of Allah Ta'ala, that is about encouragement, not about enforcement. Alright? So this ends today's first session on Quranic humanism, and this I was able to cover with you a few things that were left over from the very first session, which was ethics. We make dua Allah Ta'ala accept it. Wa akhir da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik.